Hi, guys. Before we begin the episode, I want to tell you about an amazing website that could help you get your health back. I know that sounds like a big statement to make, and I know a lot of you out there have been concerned about your health. There's a website that could change your life and potentially even save your life. I'm not going to talk too much about it. Just please go on there, watch the videos, sign up to watch the videos, and learn how you could get your health back to the way it was prior to COVID and even better. All right, welcome to the latest episode of Blood Money. Today we have a very special guest, Dr. Mark Sherwood. How are you doing, sir?
Bam, I'm doing great. It's good to be with you. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, I've been following your work for a while, but before we get into all the health work that you do and the path you've been on, it's very interesting. We started this podcast and we were like adjusting lighting and stuff. All of us have become these film and TV professionals, really, to be patriots, to stand up against what's going on, to fill the gap of the mainstream media. I mean, tell me, would you ever imagine that you would actually, 10 years ago, if somebody told you, hey, you're going to be doing all these podcasts, doing all your lighting and really getting the word out to the people about what's going on. Would you ever imagine that would have been a reality that you were faced with?
No, I wouldn't have, because ultimately, little history that answers your question. Going back 10 years ago, I was doing network TV at a weekly health-oriented television show that was airing every single morning at 6:30 a.m. And I never knew, because that thing ran for about 5 years. And then it took about a 2-year break, my choice. And I thought that was done. So I didn't think it'd be coming back like this. So irony has definitely been part of my life here.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre, I think about people like Mike Lindell, right? I came up in Hollywood, and back in the day where you're like, hey, I need to adjust my lighting, you'd have 5 people running around adjusting your lighting, doing your audio. I mean, you remember how it was. And now, we buy these kits off of online, Amazon sometimes, unfortunately, but we're building our own little studios here, really, to fill the gap of what's been happening with the mainstream media. I mean, as somebody in the health world and the alternative health world, that doesn't necessarily play with the mainstream narrative on how to be in good health. Is this something that you saw coming? I'm sure there was attacks before, or was there? Tell me about what was going on 10 years ago when you were talking the talk that you do.
About 15 years ago, and it sounds a little bit wacky, but my wife and I had the epiphany that this was going to happen. And I'll tell you what precipitated that, was my wife, who is a trained osteopathic doctor, and I'm a naturopath. She actually got fired from the medical system because, in a nutshell, too many people got well and too many people that she was seeing were not doing unnecessary procedures. So she was booted out of the system and sent on her way, and she was jobless. That's what birthed us and the Functional Medical Institute. So we had a vision at that point in time that something was dreadfully wrong, and we were speaking out against it at that time. And literally, it sounds kind of crazy now, but we were the only ones. Everybody else thought we were whack jobs and nuts and quacks and all this, but people were getting well back then. They were getting them, off unnecessary usage of pharmaceutical medications, and we're seeing disease processes like type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure reverse, and people were losing all kinds of body weight and getting very healthy with composition. And so we sort of had this idea that this was going to happen, but we never dreamed it was going to be this thing, COVID-19, this vaccine stuff that was going to push people over the edge to sort of get people now as a whole and as a better group sort of thinking like this as well.
Wow. So, I mean, take us through your journey, like where you guys started. Tell us a little bit about your background. You're saying you've been on a lot of television shows and, talking the talk that you do in terms of health. Take us a little bit through that journey pre-COVID, leading us up to COVID, please.
Yeah, so we had the Functional Medical Institute, my wife and I, Vem, and we had done a lot of television and movies in that space. You mentioned movies. I remember back when we started, the big old massive cameras and lights, and you had a crew of 15 people, multiple. Now you can do it with a cell phone. It's crazy. But, back then we were pushing this narrative out here, and truly there was nobody around, man. I mean, you talk about lonely, lonely life. There was no one around, and we're having these health shows, and we're thinking, when's it going to connect with people? And it just kind of wasn't. I mean, we're doing great. I mean, we were seeing a lot of people. We still do, but that's what it was, and we just kind of kept going at it. We started our business in one little bitty office, just my
Wow.
wife and I. No one around, no one. And now we get the opportunity to serve over 12,000 people, really worldwide, and we reach over 3 million people a year. And I think it's only by God's grace, man, because we don't consider ourselves anything special, but we continue to try to study and learn new stuff every day.
Wow. I mean, let me say, before COVID happened, now there's been an awakening. People are calling us all the time, emailing us all the time, asking about information on how to detox. What are the doctors that they should be speaking with? Because there seems to be pretty much a mutiny happening against the entire medical industrial complex. So I'm sure, a lot of people that were doing this stuff way before anybody else. I mean, I'm sure people look at you as a pioneer now. And I know you're a very humble man. You don't, I don't know if you take accolades very well, but you were a pioneer. I mean, you were doing this at a time when people looked at you like, oh, these crazy woo-woo people that are trying to tell us that the pharmaceutical industrial complex, the medical industrial complex, is not what it seems.
Yeah, it's taken me a long time, and I definitely worked diligently to walk in humility because I know, pride comes before a fall. So, but I realized though that for whatever reason, my wife and I were called, chosen, selected, equipped, whatever you're going to look at, to be trailblazers in an area. And since then, I can look back on it, not in a negative way. I look back on it like, what? Hopefully we've inspired other people to do it as well. And I know that's happened. It's good. People have told us that, but whether they copy us or whatever, I'm still okay with that. But early on, I wasn't, because I'm thinking, come on, join along beside of us. It's probably my own pride talking, and now I'm like, well, maybe copying is the best form of flattery, I guess. And so I'm okay with that. I'm fine. I want people to be well. There's plenty of sick people out here that need help. And, we get asked all the time now about, detoxing and how to make the body function well. And I can tell you back in, early on COVID days, we kind of got quote unquote known by doing what we've always done. We didn't change anything, but we had 10,000 plus people we had treated and nobody died. So it was really a fascinating journey. And we thought that was normal, but apparently not.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's pretty bizarre that, we're talking about an industrial complex that really just wants you to be sick. And if you start helping people like your wife was, you're basically pretty much blackballed. You're thrown out because you're not treating them with things that are costly, that are ultimately not great for their health.
Yeah. Stories could go on and on about our individual pathways and the troubles we've had with that. And the system, we need to know, it was not something that changed 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's not the point. It changed about 100 years ago. And we had this influx from, Carnegie and Rockefellers and all this idea of making pharmaceutical drugs profitable. And so you saw a massive shift back in the early 1900s where people like me were demonized as quacks, And it's sad because what my wife and I do has been around for thousands and thousands of years. It has been tried and true to be effective. I always say it like this idea of medicine that we have there, and we understand medicine, we're not anti-medicine, but they're still practicing on people. They say, Vem, let me try this on you. They don't know the answer. We actually do things. So we actually know what's going to happen a lot of the time. So it's a whole different way to think about it. It's a whole different mindset, a whole different perception.
Yeah. I mean, now take us. I would love to get some information from you in terms of, you don't have to go super specific, but I'd love to hear about some of these alternate protocols. What are they? How much information you could give us, and what are the things that are healable that are better done through these kind of modes as opposed to going down the pharmaceutical path?
Well, Hippocrates, the father of modern day medicine, he said something. He said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Interestingly enough, clinicians today take what's called the Hippocratic Oath, which is named after that guy, but they don't prescribe food anymore. So I think he's probably disappointed in that statement. But point being, we start with food. We give anti-inflammatory food protocols. It's not that hard. We don't prescribe diets. We tell people not to diet. We tell them what to eat. We give them a whole food list to eat, and we say, have at it. Have as much as you want. When you're hungry, eat. When you're not, don't. And then really we do a lot of genetics. This is very, very key because a lot of people today want to be able to quote unquote detox well. But we need to understand that we detox differently based upon the way our genetics are arranged inside of our nucleus. And it's fascinating when you know the differences. We know how to augment or offset that and even supplement that to make it work well. So we're all about system functionality. We're all about optimizing the biological aging processes. And we don't even look at age the same way, Vim. We look at the age as a different way. So, my calendar age may say 60, but my biological age, which you can measure and quantify now, would be somewhere around 30. So,
wow. Is this literal, by the way? You're literally talking about yourself.
Yes, of course. And my wife,
wow.
It's fascinating because we've limited ourselves, by what we can think we can do in this world, because we get the gaps get plugged by conventional mainstream because big pharma advertises to our kids. I mean, what kind of sick society? There's only two, America and New Zealand, allows that. Why are our politicians allowing this? It's because they are funded by the same thing. And so it's fascinating. We've got to really get a grip to this. And the best answer is to get outside of that system, take ownership of health. Don't give a rip what other people think. Honor this thing we call the temple and walk around healthy because you really can. And then, hook up with people like my wife and I, where we can kind of teach you how to do it.
You said you're 60, right? Did you say you're literally 60 or was that?
Yes.
You're literally 60.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, man. Wow. I mean, for the viewers out there, that haven't met Dr. Sherwood, I mean, he is, a solid build. Definitely, you have the build of really a 30-year-old. You don't look anywhere close to 60. And so, I mean, you're a proof. The proof is in the pudding, and you are the pudding, sir, in this scenario. I mean, you are actually living a much healthier life than most 60-year-olds.
Yeah, and this is interesting because I have the belief system, and some people would disagree, that our organ systems are born with the ability them to actually exist about 120 years. And I base that on what the Bible says. Some people might not agree with that, but I still have a basis for believing that. But I've also seen it, practically speaking, in some of these blue zones you see around the world where these centenarians live that long. So the capability is there. And so I look at it like that. I want to optimize the functionality of my own systems, much like taking care of a classic car. Some people can take care of a classic car. You're like, man, that thing runs well. It looks good. It's great. I appreciate an old classic. And but some people don't take care of that, and the thing sits over there and rusts. I think there's applicability in that scenario there.
Wow, I got so many questions for you, but I've heard about the Costa Rica blue zone, I think it's called, where people are living like on average like 100-something years old. I mean, am I correct? What are they doing there? How long?
Yeah, you are correct about that. Yes.
I mean, what are they doing there that we are doing differently here? Tell us a little bit about your observations on how people live in these blue zones.
Well, most of them are not connected to mainstream media. I'll start right there. They're not dependent upon big pharma to treat them and heal their ailments. Most of them eat naturally off the land. They maintain a good activity. They have good community. They sleep well, rest well, de-stress well. They are not bombarded with negative, fear-based thinking, and they have a very tight circle of people that keep them accountable in that. And so you're going to see that in communities. I think there's Costa Rica. You can look at some of the areas in Italy. There's a place, out there in California somewhere, and it's interesting how these little communities can get like that because they're very well connected. And so this is not something that's unavailable to us. It's just something that's not exposed much to us.
Yeah. You had mentioned Italy, and I remember going to Italy, seeing these like 90-year-olds smoking a pack a day of cigarettes, and they still look younger. They're still healthy. And in my observations, I noticed they had community, they had family around, they had really high quality food. I mean, that was just superficial observations. So what else is going on there that somebody, and my grandfather used to tell me, hey, smoking is not what they say it is. It's really
Yeah.
about mental health and good eating. I mean, what are those individuals doing there that they're, I mean, I don't recommend anybody smoking cigarettes, but
No.
what are they doing there at 90 years old that they're smoking a pack of cigarettes and they yet seem to be in perfect health?
Well, I think people need to understand the detox pathways. Like I was kind of alluding to earlier, we tend to believe that everyone responds the same, but we also have this God-given detox pathway that's able to see a molecule that's dangerous, like a burned nicotine molecule, and it's able to see it, recognize it, and dispose of it and eliminate it. Our systems are designed to do that. I'm not saying people should smoke, but I'm saying if we give the body the right food that has the right information, that has the right nutrition in it, the detox system will function well, therefore be able to do what it's supposed to do, which may be having to deal with burned nicotine molecules, as an example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you about this. What you were saying earlier that sounded very fascinating. It sounds like people detox differently, so you need to find out about their genetics. This is something that we've talked to some doctors about of how preventative care. I mean, the where I'm going with this is we had heard that you do comprehensive blood tests, find out what the person's genetic predispositions are, find out, are they supposed to be on a plant-based diet or a meat-based diet and things like that. I mean, is that what you're talking about, where you're during that discovery phase, you are finding out how the person should be detoxed?
Exactly. Everyone is different, Vim, and the individuality, the personalized care is critical. We look at the following areas. We look at nutrition, sleep, stress management, movement, genetics, hormones, peptides, even the glycome or glycobiology, which is a whole unique science that we don't really do in America. And we sort of encircle the human with all that, and we really factor in as well their emotional and spiritual status. And so we look at the whole human experience, and we try to enhance and encourage and give the person a good plan to get all they can out of life and really get more, not more life, in length, but more life in the years per se.
Yeah. I want to bring up something. About like 10 years ago, I went to Cuba, and what I'm about to say about Cuba is not necessarily on the political tip, because I think most people in Cuba want to get out, right? But one of the things I noticed while I was in Cuba is that there's a complete lack of media. Yes, there's Fidel posters everywhere and Che posters everywhere. That's like the media you constantly see over and over again. Feels very much like you're in a communist country with a dictator being worshipped, so to speak, right? But beyond that, there's no media. Like, you roll up to the gas station, there's no little TV set there trying to sell you something. You turn on television, it's not like you're constantly being bombarded with advertisement. And I got to tell you, like, I felt a feeling that in North America, I would say, and actually Europe, I felt like there was constant, almost like a war on your mind, because you're constantly put in this state of anxiety, constantly like the world's burning. There's always some kind of bad news. And actually being in Cuba with no media attachment gave me a sense of harmony and peace I've never experienced before. And frankly, I've never experienced other than when I go to places like that. Tell me a little bit about your, dissection of those comments.
You hit a very key point that I'm very sensitive to and appreciate. The concept of fear. We have a fear porn that is part of what media is, whether it be conservative media, whether it be liberal media. It's fear porn. It's you got to do this or else. If you don't do this, you're not going to believe what they're doing. It's all about danger, danger, danger. Vim, that whole idea is addictive to the soul, and it's actually destructive to your own body's immune system and health. And I'm not just talking hocus pocus. When we're focused out here on this cortisol, this stress outside of us, this freeze, fight, or flight reaction, we defer the body's energy outside of us and push it away from inside of us, which gives inside of us a weakness. So we become less resilient. This is why people in places like communist China and communist Cuba, some of them want to get out, yes, when they realize there's an opportunity perhaps for more riches, more opportunity. But while they're there, they may be at more peace than most people here because of the very thing you said. And so, people in those countries actually do have an opportunity to live more peaceful, even though they're in oppression. And it's almost the difference that's extraordinary. So I appreciate what you said. That's so true. And we're so addicted to this fear porn based media that it's become something, and I can't watch it anymore. I can't take it anymore, and I won't be a part of it. In every broadcast I've done, Vim, since this has been going on, and I've been on a lot of them, every one of them, I've always tried to leave someone with some hope. Here's what you can do. Have some hope. And I wear myself on my wrist here, little bracelets that says hope dealer, because it reminds me of what I'm supposed to be about. And wouldn't it be cool if in our country, in every broadcast, every news broadcast, both sides, we left somebody with a little bit of hope? Would that change things? I think it would change things exponentially in our world.
Yeah. Okay. I would love for you to walk me through, like, let's say I came to you and I said, hey, I'm experiencing health issues. Like, let's pick some, let's say, I'm diabetic. Let's say I have heart issues within the family. Let's say that I'm just generally not feeling that great, right? What is the process you would take me through in order to first find out what the issues are and then find out what the actual treatment of those issues are?
Well, people that we work with, we've got liberty now to work with people all around the country where we can get labs done in really any state in the U.S. Now, like in the example you gave me, the first thing I'm going to do is take a comprehensive history. I want to know family status, work status, family medical history, current health status, current medication usage, current nutritional habits, sleep habits, exercise habits, what you like to do, what you don't like to do, abilities, surgeries, and all that. I want to hear about Vim. I want to know Vim. And I want to ask you, what are your goals? And I want to hear those. And so I want people to set those goals big. And then I do 2 tests to start. I do a comprehensive blood analysis, which is bigger, more broad than anything you're going to get from like a general practitioner, because I want to know more than the answer to, am I sick or not? I want to know where you are on pathways to disease processes. Are you 80% of the way, 50%? I want to know that. And I want to be able to communicate that to you on how to tell you where you are and how to get you off the road and how to get you back to the right destination, which is health. I'm also going to run genetics on you because I want to understand what the past is telling me in the present to affect your future. Our genes have changed, Vim, 2% in 10,000 years. That's it. Genes don't create disease processes. I hear it all the time. It is the environment that is the creator of diseases. So the genes load a gun and the environment pulls the trigger. It's like guns don't kill people. It's the people that kill people. So it's the environment in that analogy that's killing people. So I want all of that. And then I develop a plan of action that has measurable steps, including age testing, biological age testing and all of this. And we put it in motion and, Vim gets better and has a good life.
Wow. Well, I mean, give me some examples. I mean, if you could choose 2 or 3 examples of individuals, what they were before, how they were midway through the process, and how they are now in terms of the tangible change you've seen within them.
Vim, I had an example today, just today, and this is not made up. I had no idea you were going to ask me that question. But just today, I had a follow-up appointment with a gentleman who came to me. He was sent to me and sent to my wife and I about 3 months ago. So it was near, it was late in 2023. And he came to us and he had active heart disease. He was significantly developed in type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. He pretty much on death's door, morbidly obese. And he was ready to make those changes. He didn't know if he could do it. I talked to him. I talked to his wife. I talked to the whole family. I said, I need y'all to help me with this one. The guy committed to me he would do it. One of the most honorable men I've ever met, because he looked at me and he said, Mark, I'm going to trust you on this one. And if it works, maybe I won't die. If it doesn't work, I'm going to be mad at you. And so he was honest. And so I talked to him today, Vim, and type 2 diabetes, heart disease, gone. The guy is down 50 pounds on no medications whatsoever, feels outstanding. He has zero VIM disease processes, and that's just in a 3-month window. And that is not unusual when you give the body what it can do. I've had people come to me before that have had autoimmune conditions, such as autoimmune thyroid conditions that have been reversed. I had a gentleman come to me. I just saw him yesterday. He came to me last fall, and he had this colitis. I don't know if you know what that is, Crohn's colitis. So autoimmune disease of the gut that prevents him from having a full bowel movement, loose stool diarrhea all the time. A lifter guy had a hard time keeping weight on. He was on this biologic drug for a number of years, told that he couldn't get off it anymore. I didn't tell him to do this, but about 2 months ago, he was doing so well, he just stopped the darn drug, got off it. Wow. He has had zero flares since. Zero. And he has completely, as I can tell, remediated that process.
I mean, if you were to name 3 to 5 things, right, that are oft helpful for somebody? I mean, one of the things I've heard from doctors that prescribe to, what you do is that, food is the number one thing. Food is constantly and water, by the way. Food and water, you got to filter your water. There's a bunch of estrogen in there. As a man, it's not good to drink tap water, and food always is mentioned there. But could you tell us 3 to 5 things that are consistently helpful for individuals to improve their health?
Well, I'll mention, you mentioned food. I want people eating anti-inflammatory foods. I want to show you something in water now. This is a bottle that I use. This is a bottle that infuses hydrogen in water. So when I drink this, and I'm going to just put the water in here, and I'm going to plug it in and let it charge 5 minutes and give me some hydrogen water. Hydrogen goes through every cell of the body. It's the smallest molecule known to mankind, VIM. It's able to cross every barrier, and it knocks in half free radicals and slows down inflammation. So it helps with the aging process. So I want good food, good water. I want people moving every day. Everyday movement is life. Lack of movement is close to rigor mortis. I want people working on sleep. I want 6 to 7 to 8 hours every night. Melatonin is fine. I want to make sure that's fine. Supplementation. Every person listening right now needs to be on omega-3, 3 grams. If you're over 12 years old, omega-3, 3 grams with a good ratio of EPA and DHA. I've tested 100% of people across the country for the last 15 years. 100% have been deficient in that. So that's critical because omega-3s reduce inflammation. Vitamin D is also critical with vitamin K in it as well. You got to have K to direct calcium to the bones and out of the arteries where they can form to help make those plaqued arterial vessels. And then finally, I want to get multi as well. So, that's basic stuff, but it does work every time.
I know you're a man of faith. You're always praising God for the positive things that have happened in your life. I mean, how much does faith play a part in there? And is there something specific about faith that's important to discuss in terms of healing oneself?
I think so, Vim. Faith's a part of my life because I understand hardship. I sort of was aware of God and was made aware of God early on in my life. I've said the only drug problem I really ever had was being drugged to church all the time, and crazy. But I realized early on that no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried, I would continue to fail. And there was always an emptiness there that why is the world this way? And why can't I do right? And I solved that riddle by recognizing what I believe to be God. That his involvement in my life gives me the ability to realize I need him to help me. And I've had a lot of hard times along the way, a lot. I can think back at a time in 2002, my own mother committed suicide. And I'm like, what the hell is this? You get mad at God and he understands. You get pissed off at him and want to yell at him. He doesn't yell back, And so for me, it's been something I can lean on. And I get it, man, because religion has hurt a bunch of people. It really has, and it continues to hurt people. Religion being man's best attempt to reach God, in my definition. Yeah. I just think we all need to to respond to, and if people don't believe in what I believe, that's fine. I figure they do the same thing I do, just seek and ask, keep asking and looking for truth. And I believe you're going to find it.
I mean, for people that are, not into religion, because frankly, religion's had a really bad publicist, because reasons to start wars, reasons to cause carnage, really a lot of bad decision making there, and I think people are turned off of religion. What do you tell to people that are looking for an entry, not into religion, but into a relationship with God, Christ? What do you tell to them in terms of how they find that pathway for themselves without going to institutional religion or whatever may be deemed, as people's perception, or may be deemed, hey, it's no good because they're talking about wars, they're talking about things that Christ doesn't necessarily talk about. What is their entry point?
Yeah, you bring up a good point there. Their entry point is not religion, because today you're right. It's horrible. People say if you don't believe this or believe that, there's hatred there. Jesus didn't talk about that at all. He talked about loving people. He talked about mankind's inability to do good, to not sin, right? He talked about mankind's need for help from God. And so I don't tell people to go to church or go find a pastor. I don't do that. I tell people to look for I just tell them, look out loud, say out loud, God, show me yourself. Show me you're real. Give me peace in my life. Show me the way to get peace in my life. And through the circumstances and events, I believe he will. If he's real and he's true, he'll show you. And it's about loving everybody. It's first of all about really understanding how to love ourselves, I guess, right? Because look, the evil in the world, Vim, is in my opinion, because I used to be a cop, for like 2 decades, way back when. I don't know if you knew that. But, look, hurting people hurt people. That's a fact. No matter who you are, how you are, hurting people hurt people. And typically homicide is nothing more than suicide turned outward. And so I've learned that over time. And I've learned that anybody is capable of everything. So I have to keep myself in check, knowing that I can be a goofball and I can be a pretty good guy, So I have to get up every day and say, okay, God, help me do a good job with them today. Help me say the right things. Let me not say things that are like leading people off,
Wow. All right. So let's talk a little bit about, we've been hearing about these like a lot of rise in cancer. I just heard that apparently Princess Kate has cancer. We know our head of our defense, Lloyd Austin, has cancer. Seems like cancer is pretty rampant. How do you interpret what's going on right now with the really high rates of disease, cancers, and that sort of thing?
Well, look at historical times, Vim. You go back and look at disease patterns from 100 years ago. Cancer was not on the radar. It wasn't in the top 10. Heart disease was not number 1. But now you've got cancer at 600,000 plus deaths per year, and over 2 million cases diagnosed just frequently. So here we are at a place in time where cancer will cross over and be the number 1 killer of persons within America, I believe, within the next 10 to 20 years. I think it goes back to several things. I think it goes back to the food pyramid. Remember the 6 to 7 servings of grains, chemicals in our foods, bioengineered foods, chemicals in our environment, too many pharmaceutical drugs, too much vaccination, too much dependence on this, not enough exercise, not enough disconnection, as you mentioned earlier, like the blue zones in Costa Rica, and even disconnecting in a communist country. I think it's all of those things. And I think it's all those things combined. It's not just one. And I think you're going to see it because you're seeing childhood cancers increase now. Yeah. And I think it's sad because we are better than that as a nation. But as a nation, health-wise, we are an embarrassment to the whole world. We have more resources, less results. We pay more for this thing called healthcare, and there is no such thing, and we get less results than every other country combined. It's an embarrassment, and we need to sort of have a awakening, a come to Jesus, if you will, meeting as a nation, and perhaps hopefully having a leader out here somewhere, one time at least, that will talk about these things that we're talking about today.
In terms of detox, right, is there general detox protocols that seem to work across a large cross section of people? Or more specifically, what are some of the detox protocols that you found for people that are concerned with, I've heard Roundup, everything has Roundup, right? The pesticide, it's all over our food, it's in our grains, it's constantly in our bodies. I've talked to certain frontline doctors, they say, you're getting bombarded so much on a daily basis, you need to detox on a daily basis. What are some of the things that seem to work across a large number of people?
Keeping in mind the detox system is a 24/7, 365 process. It's not something you turn off and turn on. It's always going on because we have these endotoxins or internal toxins being produced in the operational structures of our body. So again, genetics, it's important to understand the individuality of how we operate our own system, which that's what we do. But generally speaking, there's some things that people should be doing. Avoiding inflammatory foods. You mentioned the foods that have Roundup. Roundup contains glyphosate and atrazine, glyphosate being carcinogenic, atrazine being estrogenic, making the feminization of males a very key pattern today. So you want to start eating more natural foods that are packaged in God's original package. Stay away from, confined animal feeding operation, meats, and things like that. Eat more fish. Exercise more, sweat more, not a bad thing. Drink water again. Make sure you're having your hydrogen water. That's important because that gets in and turns off the inflammation. The first organ this hits is the liver. Just go figure. And then I also like adding myself high dose broccoli sprout extract. There's a reason for that. It actually has a chemical that is developed inside of our bodies upon consumption called sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is the most powerful activator of your own body's antioxidant and detox systems. So I want to augment my own production of my defenses, which I think is much, much better than trying to take something from the outside in. I see a lot of false teaching today, quite frankly, and it really is sad. Take this product and it will detox. That cannot be true, Ben, because that product has to go into our mouth through our digestive system, and I can't even guarantee it's going to get down to the cell. So it doesn't work like people think it works. I'm not saying these good, well-meaning people are not well-meaning. I'm just saying they're not well-informed.
Wow. So let me ask you about meat. I mean, I've heard all kinds of things, and I went through this roller coaster myself where I was like vegetarian and I was vegan and then I was carnivore and now I do my vegetables and my red meats. I mean, what's your thoughts on red meats? Is it bad for you? Do you subscribe to things like the carnivore diet for individuals that are built for that? I mean, what's your opinion on that topic?
Well, I don't think meat's bad. I go back, and since genes have changed 2% in 10,000 years, if we believe that, Noah and his wife hopped off the boat after the world was, destroyed by water, God told Noah to eat meat. So I think we're supposed to eat meat, and I think meat's got things in it from a nutrient standpoint that it's not going to be adequately covered by plants, namely omega-3s, probably iron, and some B12. So I see that deficiencies across the line from these vegetarian proponents. So I do think meat's appropriate. Now, the problems we have with meat today are really as follows. It really is toxins that are consumed by what we eat. So it's what we eats becomes the problem because the toxins get stored in the fat. Now, we've got to be pretty much moronic and lunatics to believe that cows today are healthy because they're sold by weight. The fatter they are, the quicker they are, the more money they make. If you have a fat cow who's been made fat as fast as possible by drugs, hormones, antibiotics to keep them from getting sick because they're not moving and standing in their own waste matter, if we think that's not going to make us sick, we're being pretty foolish. So we really want to eat meat that's sort of naturally raised. I have questions about the carnivore diet long term, because it hasn't been studied, because we have missing nutrients from the phytonutrients, the plants. And I do a lot of micronutrient testing, so I know the difference. Personally, I believe people should be eating a lot of plants, good plants, of course, and a lot of good proteins and good clean fats. And I don't really, we tell people don't eat don't diet. Just get your mind around this. When you're hungry, eat. When you're not, don't. Listen
Mhm.
to that. Just chill out about it, because America has a weird relationship with food.
Let me ask you about the roundups and these chemicals that are really bad for our health. I mean, do you think there's an intentional aspect to allowing something like a roundup that, feminizes men and has, effects of being cancerous, right? Is that intentional? Is that just industry gone bad? I mean, is there a lot of people bring up this, thing of like really what's going on in the back shadows of our government is you have a bunch of bad people that want to do bad things, so we're constantly sick and we're constantly having to go through the medical industrial complex. What is your thoughts on that topic?
I have an interesting take on that. I've been asked that a few times. I think really I go back to my answer of faith as a general rule. I think if a person doesn't feel the void they have in their heart with God, I think they don't have God. When you don't have God, you have the absence of God. Therefore, you have the absence of really good. So all you have left is what you have left, which is never going to be good. You're going on your own. And so I think we have what we let left over with an absence of God. And so I think that it's not just such an intentional act. I think it's what's left over because we've refused to realize we need help from God. And so when you see this feminization, I think it's a big, it fits into the agenda of shrinking global population, because there are people out there such as Bill Gates et al. That believe that we are reaching a tipping point of the world not being able to sustain the current population growth, keeping in mind that we've already passed that several times over the point of history where people have the same hypothesis. So I don't think he knows what he's talking about, but that's the angle they take. So they're attacking this from both ends. On the lower end, we are seeing a perpetual encouragement of abortion on demand under the idea of reproductive rights. But what about the rights of those children? Right? So there's that on the upper lower end. So we have this reproductive end. On the upper end, we see older people not cared for. Older people are put into homes. They're neglected, thrown away, and gone. We saw what happened during COVID. We saw the decline of the expected age expectancy of our people in our country. We're seeing now, because of the feminization, which is now in our waters because we spray it everywhere. It's in our food supply because in our waters we take these medications like birth controls, like statin drugs, that all contribute to the feminization. If you have a feminization of a male, you see the sperm counts go down and you get reproduction to go down. So therefore, you have this three-prong approach to shrinking the population, which, and I think you throw the vaccines on there, probably number 4. And now you've got the perfect scenario where these people would want that. We're going to maintain control. We're going to make a whole bunch of money. We're going to see the population shrink up, where now the controllers can become more controlling because we don't have as many people that are rogues like us that question things.
Yeah, yeah. And, they never talk about how it's their, the elite's decision to have certain modes of production, manufacturing, all based upon greed, by the way. And so they've set that up in a way where, the bottle of water that I could get from, 2 miles down the road, and, Nestle has to ship it from 3,000 miles away. And yes, that caused a lot of pollution because of the greed of these companies and the fact that they're answering to their stockholders and just trying to make a whole bunch of money. But then they say, we got to get rid of, billions of you because you're the ones polluting, when we're just inhabiting the paradigm that they've set for us, really, right?
That's right. And you really keep in mind that the world's okay. I believe the world was created by God. I believe God made mankind. I don't think we really came from, 2 rocks smacking together, creating an amoeba, creating an amoeba. Then we finally got fins, crawled up on the bank, and finally climbed a tree and grew some hair. And then one day decided to get out of the tree, shave the hair, get a lunch pail, and go to work. I don't really see that that's a logical progression. But I do see that when mankind tries to outdo the creation, when mankind tries to come up with something better, i.e. the mRNA vaccine, I'll use that as an example, though maybe well-intentioned, maybe not, I can't go into the heart of somebody, but when you try to outdo the structure of the way we're made, I think it's most of the time going to result in bad resulting actions.
Totally. I'd love to pick your brain about your life as a cop. I'm sure you don't get asked that often. I mean, 20 years as a police officer, right?
Yes.
I'd love to hear. I mean, what did your life as a police officer inform you about, the current state of the world? I mean, is there any enlightenment you could give us based upon your experience of being a police officer for 2 years?
Yeah, when I first started them, my first year or so, I was put into an assignment as a foot patrol officer, and I would get out and park my car. I had a partner, and we'd walk the beat. And my beat was in these under these housing complexes that were government funded. So people were put there that had financial difficulties, and a lot of times the majority of the residents happened to be African Americans. And me being I don't even know what I am. I'm got kind of crazy skin. I'm kind of a high 57 guy, a little bit of probably everything. But the bottom line is my job was to get to know the community. And even the gangbangers, I'd get to know them too. And the young men and the mamas that didn't have dads. And I saw a lack of fatherhood. I saw it. And I said, wait a minute. These young men who are gravitating towards, back then it was the Bloods and Crips gang, they were gravitating to be included because those were the male role models. That's what they had. These guys had rolls of cash, nice cars, and some guns, And so I saw these young men gravitating that way because they weren't at home. So when I saw the decay of the family, the unit, the mom, dad, the kids, the dad working, coming home every night and on the street, when I saw that decay, I said to my partner one day, I had this epiphany. I said, I really see this as the downfall of our society. And sure enough, it sort of progressed that way. And as time went on, I got into where I was on the SWAT team, and I did that for 10 years, and had a lot of harrowing experiences with that. Of course, saw a lot of things, and I saw that every person is capable of anything, and I saw every situation, good people, bad people, in their worst time, and that changed me, man. It changed the way I thought about things. It really put in me this desire to try to make things better. And it was interesting because eventually towards my latter career, I was transferred to the police academy, where I was in charge of training and recruiting and hiring, and also put in charge of developing a wellness program. And that got me into the health aspect, where I realized that police officers are dying too early, and the life expectancy of the male police officer was 66 years of age. And that got me going, wait a minute, I want to fix this. And that led me, that whole protection and service mentality led me to down the road of naturopath. And so I don't look at it any different now. I'm still in the mission of protecting and serving, but just in a different way.
Wow. The fatherlessness is a great, topic. We've actually done a lot of episodes on the family law industry, and it seems as though it's a dual thing where you have it going on, in society, but you also have the courts. And this is where you get into these conspiracy theories of, are they trying to really cause us harm? Because that has been one of the tools that has been used to get rid of fathers. Media is another tool. I mean, try to find something nice about a dad in the media in the last 30 years. I hate to say it. I mean, probably Cosby Show, and that has a lot of negative connotations now. But that was the last time we saw like a great dad, at least great TV dad, not necessarily in real life. Do you think that's all been intentional?
I saw the attack of manhood, and I honestly, this might be a little different answer than perhaps you expected. But I look back at the 70s and 80s. I was around back then. I can remember that because I told you my age already, It's like, wow, I've been around that long. But I can remember the feminine movement. And I can remember scratching my head going, well, why is that? And I think that it happened not because of the ladies, but because of the men. The men decided not to be men anymore. They went from, can I open the door for you? Can I treat you well? Can I be faithful? Can I provide? They went from that to absent. And it forced the ladies to step up to do. And it put them in a position where, hey, they're not doing it, so I will. And so it skewed perhaps maybe really originally designed roles. And I think both are equally important, maybe different, but they complement each other. And we saw the lack of complementation in that scenario. So I think that probably started that whole process, and we just continue to see a decline in that way, and now you've got so much discrimination, so many. It's overt. It's not quiet anymore. I remember clearly when I was in hiring process of the police department, I was told, Bim, and it shocked me, you need to have a certain number of people on this list, this list, this list, and this list. I'm thinking, well, that's not the mission here. The mission is to get the best people, isn't it? Regardless of what list they fall on. And so I've had a lot of experiences with that, practically speaking. And I appreciate you asking, because that's the way the world is today. People don't want to hear that. But that's really, really, really the way it is today. We show so much just overt discrimination across the board. Are we seeing that in politics today? We're seeing it in just the way we do life today. And I think we're better than that again, but we've got a long way to go, baby, as they say, before we turn this thing around.
Yeah. One of the things we were talking about yesterday, I was actually meeting with a political candidate, and one of the things we discussed was, we criticize these countries, right? Like Russia is always criticized, Iran's always criticized. Yeah. We criticize a lot of these foreign nations, right? But then when it comes to employment, we hand out H-1 visas to all these quote unquote experts or better studied individuals that are coming from those countries, right? And if you take a deeper look at what is happening in those countries, you realize that the family structure is way more solid, and the community structure is way more solid. So they're breeding these very competent, intelligent individuals that for some reason we don't have as much in our country, because now we're forced to give H-1 visas and other visas to bring them over here to continue strengthening our economy. I mean, what do you think about that reading of how it's really been working out there across the world?
Well, as you know, I've been in politics before, and it's interesting because we've got our priorities all wrong. You look at Putin and people criticize that country, communism, whatever you want to call it, but the family units are still intact. He talks about values. He talks about, boys being boys and girls being girls, and they don't really teach anything different. He talks about, we're missing the mark on things. And so these people are better equipped to really handle society. So they go through all this training, they get up coming over here. We are missing the boat over here, because a lot of these institutions, Vim, are already sold out to big communist money, taking the best from there, training them up so they can go back and do better. We have got to get back to loving our own people. As far as the border goes, I've been very outspoken about that. That border needs to be closed. Period. End of story. Held tight. Find out who's here, and find out who's supposed to be here, and find out who's not supposed to be here. And once you find out who's not supposed to be here, the bus is a one-way ticket. And at that point, then you settle things down, you sort things out, and then you have to figure out, okay, which pattern am I going to institute to get true immigration, true dreamers, back to the ability to use America as this opportunity in the land of the free and the home of the brave that it is.
Yeah, totally. This would be like my last major question to dive into. Tell us about your experience in politics, for running for office, what you learned in the world of politics.
I was an independent for years because I was sick of the party system. I saw dysfunction in that. For whatever reason, I've been able to look ahead and see things coming. Some would consider that discernment. Some would consider it foreknowledge. And I can't tell people why I had that gift or not, but it's the truth. I've been able to see things coming. And I always tell my staff, look around the corners, you want to see around there. Probably back in my SWAT days, I've been taught to anticipate. But as an independent, I remember feeling the urge that I needed to run for office. And I consulted people. And then I read the Democratic platform. I read the Republican platform. And the persons that I consulted with said, you can't win if you're an independent. You can't win. Just forget it. You have to join a party. And so I read the Republican platform, and sure enough, it lines up with pretty much what I believed. And I thought, okay, I'm a Republican. So I registered as a Republican. I get into that, and I saw so much dysfunction. So much clown, dysfunction, hatefulness, lying, backdoor deals, money expenditures. You got to be a rich elitist. You got to compromise things. And I didn't. I found myself, Vim, after about a month of trying to do things right, going around. I had a Republican platform in one hand that I would actually read excerpts from that we weren't doing because nobody in the office knew what it said. And then the other hand, I had a Constitution, equally as important because nobody in office knew even what they were swearing to protect. And I just educated people for like 10 months on that. And we rolled around there and created enough gas, enough notoriety in the Republican establishment that they kind of came after us. And Republicans didn't back me, but I still got 50,000 votes in the gubernatorial race, first-time candidate. So I'm pretty happy with that. If I had to do it over again, I don't know that I would run as a party affiliation because of it's just not representing the people anymore. And it's just not. And I feel for people today because we're putting so much power into the federal government with is the opposite. It's the opposite, Vim, of what we should be doing. We need today a reawakening where we turn this political realm upside down, and it needs to be a movement. And I'm not sure what it is, People's Party, Independent Party, whatever, no labels. But I really sense that that's really what it's going to take eventually for us to have a chance to get the people's voice back and the power back in the hands of the people.
Wow. All right. So what's your prognosis for the next few years? I mean, are we, and I'm talking about like worldwide, United States, our politics, where this is all heading. I mean, we've gone through some really ugly times in this last 3.5 years. And if for anybody that's been watching, it's actually much longer than that. This has been decades ongoing. We just haven't been hit in the head with what happened to us with the COVID situation, the shutdowns, all this money being sent overseas when our cities are falling apart, our culture's falling apart. Now that we've been people like you and I mean, to you, much more credit because you've been doing this for such a longer time. People like Clay, people that have been talking the truth. What is the prognosis, do you think, in terms of where this is all going? Are we going to turn a corner? Are we going to become a better country? Are we going to get ourselves out of this, multiple levels of tyranny, whether it's medical tyranny, whether it's political tyranny? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
We're not going to get out of it by electing people to put them in government. It's not going to happen. I don't believe that at all. I think we believe we want to have that, put the right people in office, and I will and do support President Trump. I think he will win this cycle. I think he will win re-election. However, I don't think that's going to fix anything because it's just 4 years. People need to keep that in mind. Focus on 2024. I'm saying, tell me, what's 2026 look like? Because that's a lame duck president. What's going to happen at that point, right? And so I think we're going to see more and more worldwide conflicts that aren't going to get solved. I think they may get put on pause here and there, but they're going to continue to see worldwide conflicts. I think the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is going to continue to rage. I think eventually China will become more of a player, at least backdoor so with Russia. I think you're going to see Russia-Ukraine conflict continue. I think America is never going to be these United States again. And I'm not being doomsday. I'm going to come at this with a hope meter here. I told you I would. I think that the Americans, the true Americans, are going to see what's happening and they're going to step up as a unit. And I think there's probably 100 million Americans right now, at least, that are like that. They're like saying, you know what? I'm going to stop giving my money in powerful federal political donations. I'm going to stop supporting that crap. I'm going to start supporting my family. I'm going to buy some land out here. I'm going to hook up with people in communities. And I think you're going to see a section of this country that's going to be very, very, very patriotic, very, very, very conservative, very, very, very standoffish and say, get out. I think they're going to hang on to their guns. I think there's no federal agencies going to attack them because I don't think they got the manpower, the fortitude to do it. And I think you're going to see the federal government get bigger and bigger and more liberal and liberal to try to attack that. And I think it'll be a country divided. My hope is this: if the people stand up together, just like back at the beginning of the Revolutionary War, you had these few colonists, that stood up, the 2%. and said, nope, not going to do it. I think that's right where we are right there, and I think that's what's coming. I don't see a revolutionary war again, but I see a lot of conflict within this country, and I think our methodology to believe that it's going to return is a little bit far-fetched.
You know, there's an episode that we're actually airing of this podcast, Blood Money episode 217, where we did an expose regarding the lawfare that's happening within this country, and that provided a true path of enlightenment for both the interview subject and myself as to why we're in this situation. Do you mind if we talk about that for a couple of minutes of why our country is being destroyed and divided?
Well, you look at law, and I know law. Am I a lawyer? No, but I've testified in state, municipal, federal court. And I've been on some, and I've worked with the FBI, I've worked with DEA and ATF. I've been with all of them, and I know people that work there. These men and women are not all corrupt, then. To take that every one of these men and women is corrupt is ridiculous. And frankly, I get defensive of that because I know them. But here's the deal. When you appoint leaders that are politically appointed, they have no loyalty to the cause. They don't have loyalty to the shield. They don't have loyalty to anything. All they do have loyalty to their appointer. And so that's what you've got right now. You created this situation. And frankly, we've given too much power to the federal government, those three-letter agencies. They don't supersede the county sheriff. Do we know that? Do we understand that?
Yeah.
The sheriff is the highest ranking law enforcement officer in the counties of all the counties in our country. The sheriffs today don't even understand the Constitution because they're politically appointed to by election. You know, you see, it's so messed up right now. And then you have these DAs who are trying to get reelected, who have to be well funded to get elected in the first place. And the best way to get elected is to be famous. Come on, that's what it is. The more fame you have, the more well-known you are, and it becomes a game, just a sick, twisted game. And it's not okay anymore because people are using lawful actions, the courts, to create chaos in people's lives. And it shouldn't be like that. It should be the same system that treats people fair, you know. And again, I use this one example. This is a little controversial, but if you permit me to kind of go here. Please, even the J6 situation, you know, we tend to look at that as a blanket prosecution, right? Every single person is a quote unquote hostage. Nonsense. I was a law enforcement officer. I've seen the tape. I don't care who it was. If you find yourself beating a law enforcement officer, that's not a hostage. You need to go to prison, regardless. You know? So every one of those cases, I wish were going to be prosecuted on their own individual merit. They haven't been, probably won't be. But you can see the way it should be, but you can also see the way it's not. So we have got to be very careful and push for the right things and quit making blanket statements, because blanket statements on both sides of this aisle are getting us in all kinds of trouble. And I feel badly about people and their lack of understanding, you know, how that is. If I'm there on that day, I wasn't, but if I was there and I've got thousands of people coming at me wanting to go in the door, I'm saying, the hell with this, get on in there. I don't really care at this point because I want to go home. You know, and that's just the mindset that they probably had. I mean, I don't think all those law enforcement officers were corrupt, because I know some people. I'm like, come on, man. Is leadership corrupt? Yes, absolutely. Were there some bad apples? Yes, bad apples on both teams.
Totally. And you and I think the exact same way. I think there was some individuals that were there doing bad things and they deserve to be prosecuted. But putting all of them, and we seem to do this as a society, right? 9/11 happens, all of a sudden all Muslims are bad, right? That's what the media is saying. And really, if all Muslims were really bad, I mean, we'd be scorched earth, like literally, because there's way too many of them, right? And now J6, you know, you had like some people say like 1 million people. If all those people were bad, I mean, Washington would have been like, it would have been done. It would have been done. Buildings would have been burned. I mean, you're talking about 1 million people going at it. So I do agree that there were some individuals doing bad things. Do I think every single individual showed up there, or even a large majority showed up there for bad things? I highly doubt it, because usually like the percentile of bad people is in that, you look at like maybe 10% could be bad or 5% could be bad. It's never 50, 60%, because even if 50, 60% of that crowd was really truly meaning to do an insurrection, I mean, hell, an insurrection would have happened pretty much, like, yeah. The one thing I wanted to bring up, and this is more a comment based upon this episode we did, Blood Money episode 217. One of the things that occurred to me is that our entire monetary system is set up in a way where we let the influence of ill-meaning parties from overseas, foreign parties, to really control our country. Because what I learned in this podcast is that, for example, 20 something years ago, the Saudis were holding a lot of our currency, right? And just by the act of selling our currency, they could cause a lot of damage to our economy. And now what I was told in this last episode, which is about how the Chinese Communist Party is using lawfare within our country to attack Americans, which, by the way, the reverse is not possible because they don't really respect our court decisions. They're using that. And I was like, why are they even able to do that? I mean, that sounds like maybe a tad bit treasonous. Maybe it sounds like that's a foreign agent that should be signified to be so. And what I learned is that when there's foreign countries buying so much of our currency, they actually are able to direct the direction of our policies, and politicians are scared to go up against powers like that, because it's as simple as, we're holding X amount of your currency, we're going to sell it, and then boom, our economy falls. So there seems to be a globalist mechanism there to cause us to be vulnerable as a country. Do you know much about that topic? Or?
Yes, I would agree with everything you said, because it is a globalist agenda. And America built communism in China. We started outsourcing our businesses there, outsourcing our workers there, cheap labor, cheap product to increase profitability to the owner of the company here. Many of our companies have gone over there. Many of our companies, have outsourced call centers to various countries. And we have failed to employ our workers here. It's not been American made, American bred, American pride in production and even hiring anymore. Part of that's our own fault because we allowed it to happen. So it's blossomed into this thing now. Now we're living in this perpetual debt to these countries. And you nailed it, with the ability to funnel money through these foreign connectors, foreign characters into political realms, into political action committee monies. They can effectively influence things. They can effectively influence television. They can influence politics. They can influence Hollywood, and it goes on and on and on. This whole thing we're seeing today is really fifth generation warfare, a warfare of our minds. And so, you mentioned something earlier about getting to Cuba, getting away from that and how peaceful you felt. This is why America is not making good decisions right now, because we're not critically thinking through the issues. And frankly, we don't have leadership that is willing to attack it, because it's like them, money, fame, and power is infectious. It's addicting. Who wants to give that up? Look at these federal politicians. They go in, they're making $50,000 a year maybe on a salary at a job, and then they get there, and in 5 years they're worth, $15-20 million. How does that work? You go to the poorest county, one of the most impoverished places on the country, Washington, D.C., and you become a multi-millionaire. You just nailed how that is, and that's why we're so stuck in this rut, and that's why exactly I do not see this country reforming the way we believe it could.
I mean, you brought up one more question there, fluoride. We've heard fluoride actually dumbs down people. It's something that we've been told you got to have in your toothpaste. It's in our water. I mean, how much of an effect has that had? And how do you detox that? How do you avoid those kind of, I guess it's a neurotoxin, fluoride, that inhibits, your thinking? I mean, you would know better.
Yeah, fluoride is a neurotoxin. Plus, you also have what's called lipopolysaccharides that will cross the blood-brain barrier, shortened as LPS. Those come out of the gut. When the gut becomes leaky, we get leaky gut, leaky brain. And when we get leaky brain, all these toxins get stuck in there. Keeping in mind, Vim, our brain is mostly fat. So when the brain is fat, the toxins get stored in fat. They're known as lipophilic compounds, meaning they love fat. So our brain becomes this home of neurotoxins where we cannot think. We become impaired. We become cognitively depressed because the gut is the main producer of neurotransmitters such as serotonin that keep us from being depressed. So we're actually underserving ourselves by doing this. I tell people to get off of fluoride. By the way, fluoride also impairs the microbiome of the oral microbiome, the bacteria here, which impairs production of nitric oxide, which is important for blood flow. If you don't get blood flow to the brain, you don't have nutrients to the brain. So we have multiple mechanisms of actions, and I get people off of fluoride. I tell them to start brushing with probiotic toothpaste, maybe with some colloidal silver. That's always really good. Some of these more natural toothpastes are even as good as that. So it is wisdom to get off of those things.
Wow, wow. You know, it's funny because as you're talking right now, there's been, and this is going to air at a later time, so it might seem like old news. We're probably going to air this episode on Monday. There was just a terror attack by ISIS in Moscow. And I guess ISIS is making a comeback. I thought I thought Trump got rid of them. So it's pretty crazy, man. It's crazy I mean, it's just bizarre. You know, what happened there that all of a sudden ISIS, which we thought was done, which they seem to have been done during Trump's presidency, is all of a sudden back at this very opportune time, I guess you could say.
Yeah, terrorism is a decision in the heart. You know, think about that for a moment. It's a decision in the heart of mankind. I would say it like this: when you get angry enough, that suicidal turn homicidal action I talked about earlier, that can result in terrorism. Terrorism is this, and people need to understand this, and I know this from a law enforcement standpoint. Terrorism is exacting revenge on a society you hate, because you hate them so much because they hurt you so much. You want to go in there and you want to make a name for yourself. You want to go out with a blaze of glory. You want to hurt people so much because you feel so oppressed by them or so underappreciated by them. And that's terrorism 101.
Wow, wow. Dr. Sherwood, this has been an incredible interview. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing, websites where people get a hold of you, and any comments you'd like to make?
Well, I mean, I'll leave it as I promised you I would. People can go find us at sherwood.tv. All of our books and movies and stuff that we do, we have solutions there to help, all of the listeners right now be better in health, all aspects of health. I can't tell you the world's going to be a better place in 2 years, 1 year, 3 years, 6 months. I don't know. But all I know is that your world can be a better place. If you'll really embrace this right now and begin to independently embrace your own decisions, health-wise, physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, financially. Don't depend on someone else all the time to help you out of mess. Look in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm going to do the best I can today to be the best I can be today for someone else. Give someone else hope. I give these things away. Hope dealer. Give somebody hope. Hope is alive then as long as people like you and me are breathing and able to get on a network like this. We still have that freedom, man. That is a blessing. And I hope people really embrace that and do with it what they can to provide a better place in their own world.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Doctor. We really appreciate you. We appreciate you being a pioneer and, frankly, having the courage to do this stuff before it became essential for us to do this stuff. Now what you're doing is become the norm, really. It's becoming the norm. Big credit to you for, having been a pioneer and having started this mode way before most of us even knew about it.
Well, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure, man. It's been a journey, but honored to be with you today, and I really enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for the viewers for showing up to this episode of Blood Money. Make sure you check out americahappens.com for all of our latest episodes. And make sure you drop your email address at americahappens.com so you could stay subscribed to the America Happens Network. Thank you for joining us, and I will see you on the next episode of Blood Money. All right, guys, for this episode, I wanted to do a little after Blood Money closing bit. We heard about how this whistleblower is talking about how our courts are also being invaded by foreign interests, right? But where is Congress? Where is our congressional members? This is why at the America Happens Network, we feel that it's important to get what we call Project Veritas in Congress. That means independent journalists from the America Happens Network flooding the halls of Congress asking these congressional members the hard questions that they never get asked, right? You have an audience of mainstream media members that are not asking the hard questions like, hey, why is our US courts being invaded by the Chinese? Why are the Chinese allowed to do this in our country while we can't do the same in China? And there's many questions like this. For example, the J6 individuals that are clearly feds that have yet to be exposed by Congress that show that it was a Fedsurrection and not an insurrection, right? So there's a lot of these hard questions that the mainstream media is not asking, and there is no independent media in the halls of Congress, like you see the mainstream media flooding the halls of Congress. So that is part of our new agenda at the America Happens Network to start what we call Project Veritas in Congress. So please consider donating to us. Links below, links on the screen right here, and help us get our correspondents into Congress asking the hard questions on a daily level so we could hold our politicians accountable and, more than anything else, put their feet to the fire so they are paying attention to these issues that unfortunately the mainstream media ignores, because as we know, the mainstream media is part of this narrative essentially to make our country into a socialist country, to steal the rights of Americans, to give foreigners higher privileges than America's own citizens. And this could not go on. And the way we battle this is by having our correspondents in Congress, what we're calling Project Veritas in Congress. Please support, and I will see you on the next episode of Blood Money.